How's it going, everyone? My name's Adam or EposVox, and the folks over at pixeladdicts.com sent me over the new Cinema Mount Mark II it's a universal smartphone case to turn it into an awesome camera rig. Last year-ish, I took a look at the original Cinema Mount with my LG G4. Well, I finally fit the LG G4 into the Cinema Mount Mark II. It took me quite a bit of work, and I actually went to start this review thinking it wasn't going to fit, and I finally made it fit, and I was using my Fazoli ruler to get that going. I don't know why that's in there. I'm going to review it for you here today and compare it to the original, because there's some things that I wanted improved upon from the original Cinema Mount that they did a good job with, and then some other things that I still have to question. Let's take a look. So if you didn't see my video last year, which if you hadn't, I'll put the card link in the card icon above. I recommend you go check it out. The Cinema Mount is a universal smartphone case, as long as your smartphone is smaller than an LG G4, that allows you to basically create an entire camera rig as if your phone was a DSLR with either the built-in camera lens or you have a wide-angle lens and it screws off to become a macro lens for your phone's camera. And along with that, you get double tripod screws, or you get one on each side. You get a carrying strap to go around it if you like. I've left mine off because I don't like actually using it. And you get a hot shoe mount on the top if you want to screw that into the tripod screw. If not, you have the option of mounting it basically upside down or right side up. Although this year, the adjustment knobs would prevent you essentially from actually putting a tripod plate up here, because there's no room. A tripod plate is bigger than this clearance here. Whereas on last year's model, the tripod screw where this hot shoe adapter and microphone are mounted is completely flush. There's nothing preventing it from having a tripod plate screwed on there, but it wasn't exactly intended to be done upside down anyway. So overall, I really like this case a lot. It's got this black, grippy, rubbery texture to it, which doesn't look quite as like antique as the little wood handle that was on the older version, but I don't know. It feels a lot more modern. It feels more like I'm carrying an actual camera, and even the hot shoe button is almost like where a shutter button would be. And it still fits my phone. Now, like I said, the first time that I went to put a phone in here, I did not think I could fit my LG G4. So I was going to be shooting this video with an old iPhone 4S that I wasn't going to be happy with that decision having to go down. But it turns out I was able to fit the LG G4. Now, on the back of the box here, it does say the maximum width of the phone is 3.5 inches. And that's why I broke out the ruler and started measuring, because my initial testing, I could not get it to open up the height here past 3 inches. And I was really confused by that. But it just took a lot of twisting. Instead of last year, you had a suspension spring system, like a hydraulic little suspension here, to mount the phone in a vertical, or to mount the phone sideways and grip it into place. And I absolutely hated that, because especially on my bigger phones that I was testing it with, it had way too much clamping pressure. And when it was at the very top, in order to pull out the phone, it was basically shooting straight down and risking like snapping my finger and stuff. It was really frustrating. But then the horizontal adjustment knob, which is just this little red one, which slides it in and out, was just fine. And then there was a knob on the side in order to adjust the lens height. All that was fine. But what I did like about it was the entire cage itself was totally open. So you could leave the phone plugged in. You could plug in stuff to the headphone jack. For example, here I have the Amperage Mighty Mic. It is a little mini shotgun microphone for DSLRs and camcorders and phones, and it works great. It has a little curly extension cable and mounts right up here. Well, when I originally had the iPhone plugged into the Cinema Mount Mark II, I couldn't plug it in because the iPhone 4S's headphone jack is up top. The cord wouldn't clear, and the hole cut out on the bottom wouldn't allow me to actually plug in the iPhone to power anyway. For modern smartphones that aren't an iPhone 4S or older, it's actually working out quite nice. Now, if your headphone jack is on the top of the phone, you're kind of screwed. But as long as it's on the bottom, you're good to go. You got this nice big cutout. I can access the micro USB port. I can access the headphone jack. And they even included here, and we'll go ahead and touch what comes in the box. You get a lens cap, although the little sticker label for it was actually peeling off as when I opened the package. That was weird. You get a camera strap. You get a 3.5 millimeter 4-pole extension cable to extend any microphones or headphones or whatever you might be plugging into it. You get this weird little grippy thingy that's not at all listed on the box, and there's no user's manual, so it took me quite a few minutes to figure out what the heck this is actually for until I actually needed it. But it's actually to screw the lens off of the filter plate here. And then you have a filter plate, which has a neutral density filter and a polarity filter, I believe, in here as well. and this big bad boy holds the filter up there. And if you had any other filters around the size that could slide in there, you could use them with this as well. Well, when you screw this onto the lens, and then you go to screw it off, the whole lens comes with it, and then you use this little grippy thing to screw the lens off of the filter plate. So that was kind of cool. Same deal as last year with what comes in the box, but the big difference is the design change with the overall product, and I like it quite a bit. If I put them side to side here, they're about the same size, but for whatever reason, the new one feels just a lot less cumbersome. It feels more solid. I don't know, it just feels a lot easier to hold on to. I do like the new adjustment dials, although they're a little bit of a pain to use when you're just sitting there turning it forever, but I like it a lot better than the suspension system last year that drove me nuts. I immediately wanted to switch to this because it made me a lot happier. I like the lens elements a lot better here. The Koziro lenses. Again, a wide angle and a macro. I'll have some sample B-roll and shots up here so you can see it with my LG G4 in beautiful 4K, probably downscaled to 1080p here. I did notice here the sensor for the LG G4's camera at 4K has an image stabilization option that actually kind of wiggles the sensor around a little bit, which means that sometimes you get some accidental vignetting. I have the lens like as centered up as I could possibly imagine, but I'm still getting a little bit of vignetting if I turn too quickly, because literally the sensor is not catching up with me yet, and so it's clipping the side of the wide angle lens little adapter, but there's nothing you could do about that, and sometimes that happens just kind of normally anyway. My big major gripes are as follows. I say as follows, there's not actually a whole heck of a lot. The tripod thread mount on the bottom is still on the right hand side. Now this kind of actually balances out with the hot shoe adapter, because if you load up any sort of heavy video light, microphone or what have you onto that hot shoe, then that's where you want the tripod to be supporting the camera anyway. But as is with the big heavy lens, although what I do like about the lens is smaller than it was last year, so it's quite a bit lighter. It's nowhere near as heavy as it was, but you still have all of this weight on this one side, so then the weight of the lens starts dragging it down if you have cheaper, weaker tripods. Now this is a fairly high-end product, so if you are spending quite a bit of money, hopefully you have a good tripod, or you're just going handheld. But I use a lot of cheaper tripods here in the studio because I'm poor and that's what I do, and they're easy to just throw around and no big deal if they break. And sometimes the camera starts to sag a little bit, especially if I'm trying to stand it up high to record myself. And that was a problem I ran into last year as well, and that was seen in a couple of my videos around the holidays when I needed to use this rig. But on the whole, isn't too big of a deal. Obviously you can't mount it in the middle because that's where the poles are, but some sort of strap maybe to mount into the tripod thread and then cover the base and provide a tripod screw at the bottom or something. I've been trying to figure out how to rig that and have not figured out a solution yet. Something like that would work. My only other major gripe with it is this hot shoe adapter. Now I mentioned before, I'm using this Amperage Mighty mic with the phone rig, so that way I get higher quality, more crispy audio. And I can slide it in there the same, and then pop it in the headphone jack for my smartphone and start recording. The problem being, actually it detects it as headphones because of the adapter, but I can still make it work with their included cable actually, because for whatever reason Amperage only included a 3-pole connector, which works for camcorders, not for smartphones. So for smartphones I would actually need the adapter that came with the cinema mount itself, which is a 4-pole and will detect it having a microphone. Anyhow, the hot shoe adapter itself here doesn't tighten, and it's not tight enough to hold this down. Now I haven't tested this with a whole lot of accessories because this is the only one I plan to use with the mobile device, but I can't leave it in there. It's going to fall out or wiggle around, which is going to make a lot of handling noise for the mic. That's really weird because last year's hot shoe mount actually had an adjustable width thing, so you could loosen it up, slide in your hot shoe mount accessory, and tighten it up on the accessory so it doesn't go anywhere. The solution for me is I'm going to pull this off the old rig, put it on this year's rig, and probably be good to go as long as it fits widthwise with those dials. For everyone else, I'm not sure. I'm sure you can get these kinds of adapters online, but it was very frustrating to see that this is a one-size-fits-all kind of thing with there's no slanted, applying more pressure as you go further back, nothing to latch anything into place. This feels like a huge oversight for me, and it requires a flathead screwdriver to screw in for some odd reason. Overall though, I'm quite happy with the Cinema Mount Mark II. This is still one of my favorite things that I've gotten to review on the channel, both last year's and this year's, in that you get to take a smartphone, which smartphones nowadays have really good cameras. They don't match a DSLR, but for just shooting vlogs or home video or just casual video, I even use them for B-roll. okay. Having a 4K capable device shooting through these nice lenses. This is a 100-degree wide angle lens, or using the macro on it with a case that allows you to hold it fairly steadily or put it on a monopod or tripod is incredibly, incredibly nice. And especially when I swap out, actually I'll do that here real quick. When I swap out the hot shoe adapter and attach the microphone, I've got myself a proper video rig here in 4K. Okay, yes, I was able to attach last year's hot shoe mount on this year's adapter and put the Mighty Mic in there, and I'll be good to go. But again, those of you who don't have last year's and are upgrading to this year's don't have that solution. This has been my review of the Cinema Mount Mark II for your smartphone. It's a smartphone case to turn it into a recording rig of sorts, and I like it a lot. I liked it last year. I still like it this year. Still minor tweaks. It's just one of those things with, especially like with last year's, with the height, with the pressure height adjustment system, and now the knobs that aren't entirely doing it for me, though they're better than last year's. It's one of those things where I don't entirely have a solution. I don't have the answer. I don't know how you go about fixing this in a way that would make me happy. And so I'm fine to accept the option that I'm given now, especially since it's better than last year's. They didn't go backwards, they did go forwards. I still would like to see a little bit more refining and tweaking on it. And lastly, these little loops to attach the cable strap to, they don't give me any confidence at all. They feel fairly plasticky, and I feel like all I have to do is drop, especially since they protrude like this, I feel like all I have to do is like drop it once, and those things are smashed. And obviously having the strap would ideally prevent me from dropping it, but life isn't perfect that way. I did prefer, even though it's still kind of plasticky, the loops on last year's model, and if all else failed, it had these big metal rails that I could have attached a strap to that I no longer have. I prefer not having it now with this nicer form factor, but that's what it is. So I'll also have a playlist like last time of clips that I took with this that didn't make it into B-roll or are just extra. You can check that out in the description below. It will be an unlisted playlist of unlisted videos. But this has been my review. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, smash that like button. Get subscribed for more awesome tech videos. And the product link will be in the description below. And I will catch you in the next video.
I also want to take a moment to give a huge thanks and shout out to our recent Patreon subscribers. Without you guys, these videos would not be possible, and I thoroughly appreciate your help. Visit patreon.com/EposVox to learn more.